Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Friday edition of IT, presented to you by Toro. It's Millar, it's Rose, and we're joined by a special advisor to the Pittsburgh Pirates. You might know him better as a two-time World Series champion, David Eckstein. David, how you doing? First of all, where are you joining us from, and fill us in on your family and what's been going on the last few months?
I'm in Florida, so I'm in my hometown, and had the ability to kind of quarantine with my family. And as many people know, most of my family has had kidney transplants, so they're on their immune suppressants. So we've been locked up for a long time. But everyone's healthy. We can't ask for anything better than that right now, and just hopefully at some point in time we get some baseball.
Yeah, we're all keeping our fingers crossed there. So, hey, if you need something to watch this weekend on MLB Network, they're playing games 6 and 7 of the 2002 World Series between your Angels and the Giants. Give me one story about, I don't know, the galvanizing moment of the 0-2 Angels.
The 0-2 Angels, I would say probably the best story that I like was the sense of on the bus on the way back after losing Game 5 down 3-2, basically Troy Percival standing up on the bus going, who would not sign this contract to go home to win 2 games to be World Series champs? You know, stuff like that, like the veteran guys stepping up like that, kind of taking the pressure off. And that was probably one of my favorite stories within the stories. You know, I think if you watch Game 2, the fact that, you know, Tim Salmon, when Barry hits the one ball, that's the first ball I've ever seen hit. And then, I'm sure we'll probably say stuff about Game 6, but golly, Spezio's at bat in Game 6. But stuff like that.
That's good stuff. Now, I do want to tell you the network's a little angry at you, and it's been angry at you because your 06 World Series with the Cardinals, you kind of took that title away from Sean Casey, who probably would have won the MVP trophy. Give us a story about that year.
Yeah, well, the thing about it was I always talk about. I'd say the biggest thing within that 06 club was the fact that for the first 2 months of the season, we were the best club in the majors, basically. We all got injured. And so then we ended up limping into the playoffs. But when we arrived in San Diego, it was basically our starting lineup from what we had before. And the sense of we go out there, and I always go back to Ronnie Belliard's play up the middle. Ground ball hit up the middle, diving play, throwing out with bases loaded. We're winning that game. Jim Edmonds stepping up. And we had not done anything about it. And all of a sudden, he gets up on one of the tables and he passes out a game ball. Sounds so cliche, maybe not hokey, but we bought into that. And from there, it was like, here we go. Everyone's saying we're an underdog going in. And then, you know, going into Shea, winning Game 7, you know, the emergence of Yadier Molina. So those like stories like that, and going into, and you know, the World Series, Sean Casey's World Series is unbelievable. It could have been a sense of that's who could have been the World Series MVP, even though they didn't win, because that's how great a series he actually had. So
I think 9 for 17, 2 homers and 5 ribbies, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and luckily we got it. He wasn't coming up in the 9th with anyone on base that could do something to tie the game up.
Well, a few years later, you were actually a part of a very special game, 2011, Game 6, St. Louis and Texas. You throw out the first pitch. Now, please tell me you were there for Freeze's heroics, or were you one of those guys that beat the traffic?
So as you know, Kevin, like the sense of you kind of get a little bit jaded to the game of baseball once you play for that many years, and you kind of lose the touch of being that fan, you know? And so this was legitimately the second time I had been back to a park. I got to throw out a first pitch in Anaheim early, like right in the month of September, but I was able to get back to a park because I had stopped playing. And I went out there and had the ability to go and throw the first pitch. But then no, I went to the box, and legitimately it brought the fandom right back into me. Watching what David did, you know, everyone thought Nelson, like when he hit that ball, I thought Nelson Cruz was going to catch it. Like, no doubt. I was like, oh man, the game's going to be over. And then all of a sudden it gets out of the outreach, stretched arms of him, you know, tie the game, and then go into extras, and then hitting it. Like I became a fan again. And that all that love of the game that I had all growing up was right back in me. And you know, and being in St. Louis, watching, you know, just sitting back and watching their fans go crazy. That type of passion, I love it. And yeah, it's still one of my favorite. I mean, it brought the fan right back in me. And as you guys can tell, it has left since then.
So good, buddy, because that's the truth. We're all fans. We all hit in the backyard playing some wolf ball, and we get to the big leagues. All of a sudden, we think we're too cool, but that's good stuff right there. I do want to ask you one thing now. You got MVP trophies. You've got World Series trophies. You got All-Star trophies and signatures and jerseys. But you know what? You might not be the most famous person or recognizable person in your household. Your wife, voice of Star Wars, but now this is the Clone Wars animated series?
Yeah. So back in, I think it was 2005, she goes on an audition and gets this role for some Star Wars character that she's not even allowed to talk about. And it ends up being the character Ahsoka Tano, who is Anakin Skywalker's Padawan. And in Star Wars term, it's someone he's training to become a Jedi. No one in the universe knew Anakin, who turns into Darth Vader, actually was training a Jedi. And it happens to be my wife's character. And a funny story about that, and she had to sign NDAs, so she's not allowed to talk about it. And I'm like,
Kevin, hey. By the way, an NDA is a non-disclosure agreement.
Thank you. Thank you. I was just over here thought it was a soda.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So I had to sign an agreement that she was not allowed to talk about it. And we're around the media so much while we're playing. I'm like, Ash, I believe you're working for Star Wars. Don't tell me anything about it. I don't want to slip or anything that I've said something. So legitimately, I didn't find out about her character. So we went to 2006. We're going on a year now. And she's like, well, I've been invited to George Lucas's ranch and we're going to go meet him. And
Tell me.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, no. So legitimately, we show up at the ranch. They let me in the door. There's an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement that I had to sign. And that was the moment I found out who she was. And then we got to go down in his private movie theater and watch like the first 3 episodes of the Clone Wars. So it was actually pretty cool. But yeah, she's way more famous than I ever thought.
Yeah, well, you admit it. It's kind of hot that you're married to a Jedi, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's pretty lucky. And so like in the last movie, The Rise of Skywalker, like when the voices come to Rey, she was actually one of the voices that came to Rey. Oh. So he got to go in with J.J. Abrams and film that and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't even come close to her now.
That's cool. Hey man, occasionally when you were hitting from 2001 through 2010, you needed a lightsaber to protect you because there was only one guy in baseball who got hit more often than you, and that was Jason Kendall. There were 4 guys that hit you a career high 4 times. Can you name them?
Oh wow! Can I name the 4 guys that hit me? I gotta think. I'm drawing a blank on guys that hit me 4 times.
All right, here we go. Barry Zito, Joe Kennedy, Roy Oswalt, Joel Pinheiro. Did any of them do it intentionally?
I wouldn't say so. I know Roy liked to come inside, and with the lineup behind me, that he was going to have to face if he hit me. So I don't think he would have. No, I don't think so. The way I stood on the plate, and you got to understand, being a small guy, the only way to prove that you're tougher than the guy out there is like throw your hardest fastball and let it hit me, and I'm going to run the first base after you do it. And so it was like my mindset to do it. So I'm not going to acknowledge that maybe on a couple of those, I probably, facing them, I would rather get hit by a pitch than try to actually hit them. So, so I would think some of them might have been my fault why I got hit.
Well, you know what? It's funny you say that because we've got a guy who wants to pick a bone with you. He's our ace researcher on an Intentional Talk. He was a star pitcher at Stetson, the same place that produced Corey Kluber and Jacob deGrom. His name is Mark Matcham, and he's got a story about when, yes. Oh, do you remember Match?
Yes, I do.
What's up, Beck?
How's you doing, Mark? Hey, doing well.
Good to see you, man. Yeah, I was telling these guys how of an insane at-bat it was to pitch against you. The way you got on top of the plate, it was ridiculous. And I can remember one of my first big starts in Gainesville, you were leading off the game. And it wasn't intentional, but the way you crowded that plate, man, I was a sinker slider kind of pitcher. Yeah. My sinker just ran right into your ribs. So I'm sorry about that.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. I enjoyed that. And I'll give you a funny story about Stetson. So, the thing is, like, no one ever recruited me. So, but there was one school that did my junior year, and it was Stetson University.
Yes.
Pete Dunn was the head coach.
Pete, legendary coach there.
Yeah. And from what my head coach told me was the fact that my senior year, he came up to him and said that, no, I was too small to ever play D1. So I always had a little bit of an edge when I played against Stetson. And so,
well, it was awesome to pitch against you. I'd have rather been your teammate, but
yeah.
By the way, Eckstein, you guys crushed match. He didn't even make it through the second.
Yeah, the wheels fell off after, like you said, you sprint down to first base. It's like, oh, here we go.
Good job. You ruined his dream and you turned him into a researcher at Intentional Talk. You were the guy that ruined it all for him.
It's all good, man.
Good seeing you. Yeah, I don't think it was me.
Hey, David, thanks for joining us for a few minutes. Best to you and your entire family. Match, we'll see you next week, and we'll see everybody else next week on IT, presented to you by Toro.